Hi. We're gonna do a studio visit today with Ali Eslami. So he's coming on now. So just give us a second. Waiting for him. Hopefully the internet quality is better today than in past experiences. Oh, I think he's here. No, that's not him. Hey, Heim. You guys, my dad's watching. Hello, Paris. Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm still getting used to doing this. I miss the old anonymous days. Woo! It's been crazy, huh? Crazy times. For those of you who are joining us right now, waiting for Ali to join us, we're going to be talking about Ali Eslami's practice. He's an artist. Hey guys. Hey Icy Gaze. He's an artist who's originally from Iran, and he currently lives in Amsterdam, and he works in virtual reality. Oh, says you, Ali. Can you send it again? Is it? Oh wait, maybe it's here. Oh, okay. There we go.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey.
Nice to meet you.
Yes, hello. How are you?
I'm good. Is it nighttime there?
Yeah, it's like 11 p.m. in Amsterdam, but it's quite still somewhat bright. I mean, it's summer, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much for being willing to go with my California schedule.
No, for sure. I mean, it's all pleasure. Pleasure is mine.
I was just talking about you. I was gonna say behind your back, but it wasn't.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't really behind your back.
Hope it wasn't too bad.
So we're gonna do a studio visit today, which is obviously a little doing a studio visit with an AR VR artist is clearly a little different than doing a studio visit with a painter or a sculptor. Before we start, I'm gonna turn comments off until the end, you guys. The reason I'm doing this is because I have bad focus like everyone else because I'm a millennial, and I don't want to get distracted, and I don't want to take away from what Ali has to say about his work. So at the end, which will be in about 30 minutes, we'll open up and we'll stay here as long as you want and talk about anything. So don't worry about it. But thank you guys so much for joining us. Okay. So let me turn you off, guys. Turn off commenting. Bye. I love doing that. I love having control. Okay, so I guess we should start at the very beginning about you, because I think that your biography is very interesting to the kind of work that you make.
Yeah.
Hold on, somebody wants to say hi.
Oh, you have a cat. Oh, it's a dog.
Missy!
So sweet. Nice.
Very, very sweet.
The name is Bestie, you said.
Missy.
Or is it the best? Oh, Missy. Okay.
So let's start from the beginning. So you were born in Iran in 1991.
Yeah.
Correct?
Correct.
And how long did you live there? What was it like growing up there?
Okay, so yeah, I'm born and raised in Iran. So now I'm 29, and I've been there since 27. Since I've been 27, so I just moved here to Amsterdam 2 years ago. But in Iran, I lived in 4 or 5 different cities because of my father's job. We've been moving around a lot, even when I was a kid. So I'm sort of inside Iran. I've been a local nomad in the sense that changing a lot of cities. And Iran is huge, so every city is a different culture and subculture. But yeah, I sort of like grown up with because of my father's like my father was like a computer geek. He was always into hardware. So we always we had this privilege of having computers at home, even at the early 90s when I was a toddler. Since then 2000s when I grew up and early internet came in, so we always had access to that, and I grew up with that. But yeah, I mean, it's I'm all like self-taught, and my background doesn't relate to anything about art. I studied civil engineering in as a bachelor's, but always yeah, I always taught stuff myself mainly through the internet, because like that was sort of like digital culture and like growing up with this. And I was also a hardcore gamer, I have to say.
A hardcore what?
Gamer. So I was always a gamer in my life. So also online games, that sort of like I grew up with that. So this kind of like virtual side of life has always been parallel as I grew up in life, and that had a huge influence to my work as it is right now. But yeah, I think I took quite an unconventional way.
Well, yeah. You say in your artist statement, you say that being raised in a conservative religious family and experiencing multiple layers of complexities in political and religious ideologies made it confusing for my identity. My main struggle was the notion of trust in finding myself in a deeply manipulative, censored, and ambiguous society controlled by the monotonous structure of power. At the same time, I grew up with the internet and digital culture and found that a liberating space was my real life constraint. And I want to hear you talk more about that, because I was actually just having this conversation like separately with a friend in the park, and he was saying to me like there's something inherently wrong with the internet because it's not actually the real world, was his sort of idea.
Right.
And I kind of feel like you're saying the opposite, like that you were able to be free because the internet was the real world.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, when like being in this sort of like atmosphere and like living with all these sort of like constraints, to a certain point, it's annoying. And then from another, like when you pass the threshold, it just becomes an absurd fiction that you just want to just like put it aside and try to make something of your own. And I mean, this is somewhat in a state of mania. I don't want to be an apologist for living and being like having to be in this like I didn't choose it, but this is something that to move forward, I found a way that I have to sort of craft that kind of reality that I'm looking for within the virtual world, because that was the only like fabric of reality that I could control or at least have some agency upon. So that I found pretty liberating in a sense.
And how did that start for you? Because you were doing civil engineering.
Yeah.
What was the sort of evolution of your thought that brought you then into making art, and then digital art and art and virtual?
Yeah, you know what? Like honestly, in Iran, like most of I mean, at least from the perspective of males, we mostly do like that. We go to university just to make our military service a bit easier. So I loved architecture. I loved to study architecture, but going there was a bit tough at the school. It was super competitive, and I was not a good at academia and this kind of stuff. So I had to take an alternative, which was civil engineering. And I thought it's an alternative, but it wasn't at all. Civil engineering is a whole different thing. It's just physics.
world
physics and
problems.
math. But I actually embrace it because what I'm doing now I'm sort of half engineer, half artist, because my work demands a lot of technical aspects and logic and this engineering mindset that, although I didn't enjoy it at all while I was studying civil engineering, but that gave me a good mindset of being patient, just push myself to learn programming. If I went to art school, I wouldn't challenge myself to learn programming. I would assume, but so I mean, it's just like I try to, you know, everything was just from the internet, and I try to. I had a bit of a privilege of, like, my parents were supportive, so I could still sort of survive and like, you know, do my own things, although I had zero income until I was 27. You know, it's just super niche what I'm doing, and there's no like ways of financing art in Iran. Like mostly it's struggling, and it's awful. It's like a whole different world when I compare it Iran to the Netherlands. Now we have here is like public art funds that it just doesn't have any ground in where I grew up. But also working with when I grew up, and like when I realized I want to work with VR as a medium, then it became even more complex, because VR is also niche in the whole world in general. It's like it's a niche side of technology still. It hasn't broke down like the internet did, and I felt like a state of no future. So I really had to move out of Iran, and this sort of like there was some stupid constraint as well. When you're in Iran, you face, like, you know, sanctions, like from inside and outside. Like outside is like, to give you a vertical slice, like an example. I don't want to dive deep into this kind of discussion, but just an example is like 3-4 years ago, while I was still in Iran, I got an email from Google's creative lab, from Google in New York. And they wanted to commission something about VR, an online VR application. So they said, yeah, we loved your work. We saw it online, and you could. It would be nice if you could send us 4 ideas. We would pay you 1,000 for each idea, and if you develop one of them, 21,000 right off the bat. It was great, and I was super excited. I couldn't believe I got this email out of the blue. But then it was, the interesting part is when it came about, like, okay, how's the financial stuff going to work? How am I going to get paid? And because of bank sanctions, like there's no way you can get paid from the US to Iran or whatever. So, and then they stepped back. So they reached me out, and then they stepped back. They said, "Oops, we cannot do this. It's like it's not possible." So I was like, horrible. And I thought, okay, this is horrible, and it's not. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it's sad, because many friends and talented artists I know in Iran are all facing these sort of like things that they haven't chose for. You have to fight a bit harder to get just the basic privileges. Like having an international bank account, you don't know how much a privilege it is, because we take it as granted.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, I mean, so is that what kind of led you? How did you get to the Netherlands?
Oh yeah. So in 2016, I had this project called DevTools Experience. That I made just in my room, just out of curiosity, and I applied it for a festival in Amsterdam called ITFA Festival. It's a documentary festival. They had a doc lab program where they do new media experimental forms of documentaries, non-films, and it got selected. I was like, wow, that's brilliant. And I was invited to come to Amsterdam to set up that project, which was in 2016, early times where VR was sort of popping up everywhere. In festivals, there was also new. So that project, I can just show, maybe I can show one picture of it to give more context about it. So it was a data experience. It's called DevTools Experience. And it was a data experience where you had to walk between dead bodies in body bags. So these are statistics that you hear in the news. Like this is the Paris attacks, which is like 130 people who died that year in that incident.
Yeah.
So it's some sort of like a journey that you, in a VR, you go into 3 different environments. First one is European environments where you see European massacres, like shootings and stuff. And this one is the Nice attack with the truck, if you remember.
Yes.
76 people. So in VR, you have to walk and have to confront these bodies in body bags. And then you go to the second environment, which is like a beach area in the Mediterranean Sea. It's somewhat fictional. So, and here you will confront 3,700 bodies of the refugees who drowned in the sea during that year, 2016. And you go under the water and you see all these floating dead bodies. And these are like exact same numbers that you hear in the news. And then the last one is the Syrian civil war casualties, which is 400,000 people. And this was a huge challenge for me to visualize in VR. It's like each of these towers that you see, these are kind of like Babylon towers.
Yeah.
And in each of these towers, there are like 10,000 bodies. So you have to come from top of the tower to the floor, and you see all these bodies like around the towers. And then you come out of that tower and you see 40 more towers in the landscape to sort of give you the idea how massive this number is. And I found this thing really makes sense in VR, because VR is like a spatial medium, and it gives you the perception of the things that you cannot perceive normally through the so I because for me the only way to perceive big numbers was through capacity of stadiums. Like, you know, this stadium that I used to go to watch footballs, it used to have 100,000 people capacity, and when it was full I could imagine that. So I tried to make a fictional sort of setting to give you an idea how massive these numbers are that we just filter with our minds in the news. And yeah, this was a big success, and it won the award, and then it went to some other festivals like Southwest, and yeah, like 10 other festivals. But the super thing about Southwest was it was right at the time where Trump signed the travel ban in 2017. I was like, okay, I cannot go there anyway, so I asked them to just show my work on behalf of me. So yeah, that was Defto. So it's kind of like, it was a big flip. And then after 2 years, then I got back to Iran, and after 2 years, I got invited back here from a grant from City of Amsterdam. And they have a program called 3 Package Deal, where they invite 15 international artists who had a contribution to Dutch culture before. And they invite them back to develop their artistic career here in the city of Amsterdam.
Oh,
so I was
amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I was super lucky to have this, and it really was the best way for me to move out, and because as a non-EU person, if you want to move out of Iran or like the Middle East, it's super tricky. It's like the most perceivable way is just to apply for master's somewhere and then, you know, study something. But I didn't want to study. But I just wanted to keep doing what I wanted to do. And this is like, now I'm quite grateful for it. And yeah, so yeah, that's how it turned out about this. But yeah, but beside this project, I sort of like moved away from this sort of more nonfiction kind of works, and over time I kind of drifted towards the fiction, and I would say the reality itself has become more fiction, to be honest.
I know. I saw this like hilarious meme the other day that was like, oh, this season of Black Mirror is so good, very believable. Like that it's like a virtual reality season and that we're all trapped inside of it.
Yeah, exactly.
But talk to us a little bit about false mirror, because I was studying that on your website, and then I went to false mirrors page, and
Yeah.
walk us through that project, please.
Sure. Sure. So right after this project that I just showed, DevTools, a year after that, I was really doing some research about like, and I was sort of like becoming self-conscious of what do I want out of VR, and
Yeah.
What am I doing here? And it sort of led to sort of after a year of like overthinking and so on and so forth, I realized that I want to do artistic research. I do so many small things, like so many small sketches, that I don't want to necessarily call them projects. But I want to have like a ground reality that I can do all these experiments and have them all in one place that grows over time, and see it more as a process rather than a project. Which honestly, this doesn't fit well with the current whole political system of capitalism and art world and everything. Everyone wants a finished work. Process is not appealing. You need to you wrap things up, say it's a project, and for fundings, for everything. So it's a huge challenge. So what I decided to do was I started to make this project called False Mirror. And the whole idea of it is based on this basic question of, if future humans were ever had to live in a completely virtual world, how would that life be like? So I started to kind of have this as a base, and start to speculate my sort of like virtual life. So I structured the whole project as a growing virtual city, so that it grows over time and expands and reshapes itself. And I chose like the metaphor of city because like cities are interesting because they always grow. They either grow or they get abandoned. So it's just like I love this temporality that with the notion of space that sort of like the space tells you about how time grows. So I started to make this project as a ground to speculate and practice my research with VR as a long-term kind of like my life's work. And this is kind of like therapeutic as well in a sense, because it's kind of sustainable in a sense that because I'm trying to make to think about life as a visual life, and life is detail. Like life is all about details. It's world building, and to make a convincing life, you need to imagine every layer of these details, and in VR it means you have to craft it all from ground up. So in 2017, False Mirror was 2 spaces interconnected to each other. And then I made an elevator to connect these spaces. And then I made 6 more spaces. And then with that elevator, I could go between these spaces. And then I felt like, okay, there's something missing. I don't feel like home. And then I made a home for myself, a virtual home. And so one of those floors in the elevator was a home. And then I thought, my body is just these hands. How about if I expand and think about my body?
Because I think I saved a picture of the hands in my phone. Oops, hold on. Let me see if I can. Wait. Are these your hands?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I thought that it's not just the space that can be rethought and redefined. It's also my body, because then I sort of realized that okay, I can do so many imaginative things with my body. So I made so I worked on my virtual identity. I called this person Alice. This is my virtual identity, which lives within this world. It's kind of schizophrenic and scary, but bear me with that. And then I now after like 3 years, it's like 9 spaces. In each space there are different tools that I can play with, And I add so many things to my hands. I can show you this. So I made my body like a modular body. Where is that? Let me show you this one. Yeah, it's here. So I made this sort of like my hands are like, there are different kits attached to my hands, and each of these kits are like giving me a different function or perception in the world. Like for instance, I can shrink myself in VR, like, and become really tiny wherever I go. Or this one is like a lighter, like I can shed light to my face. And I find it interesting because like I grow my body and functions of my body as I live my life. So this shrinking feature I added because I was bored of the spaces that I was maneuvering around in False Mirror. Then I realized, okay, I want to shrink myself. And then adding that is like embodied, it's attached to my body. And then I could like really get small wherever I go. So now here is like the latest state of my body. All these kits that are attached to my hand. So for instance, I also, like here I can get shrinked.
So when you're working in VR and you're imagining your body or reimagining it in a digital space, are you thinking of these things as like a prosthesis to your actual self, or is it almost like being an alien where everything is possible in the sense that it doesn't even have to be anthropomorphic?
Yeah, it's actually interesting because it's both. In a sense that like, because I'm as I said, I'm living with this project, right? So it's in a sense reflection of myself, like at least part of it, to sort of counter some emotions even. I go through some dramas in life, and then I make a car, which is I made a car. Let me think if I have
the Ferrari.
Yeah, this Ferrari thing.
Oh, I have a picture of
it. Yeah, this one. So I put it in my home, but there's another space that I can actually write with this Ferrari, and this is Wasted Feelings Ferrari. so I was like, I had an experience that I felt like, okay, I wasted some feelings on some person, and I need to walk away from this feeling. So I made the Ferrari that the fuel of this Ferrari is wasted feeling, and I could go forever until the fuel goes down, with like drive with this Ferrari, and then the fuel goes down, then I could walk away out of those feelings. So sort of like trying to make devices like virtual machines to counter emotions.
Is that, you put that in the section, the art therapy section?
Yeah, the human therapy section.
Human therapy, sorry, yeah. Human therapy.
Yeah. Or like last month, I made this thing. This is a infinite dream machine. So this is a machine that's it's like my body is like connected to this machine, and it's monitoring my dreams 24/7. Because I had this like I don't, in real life I don't see my dreams, right? I don't remember dreams, and I'm like, fuck, I really want to remember these dreams, like what's wrong? And then I just like made this infinite dream machine so that one day I'm sure that I could encrypt those recorded dreams and like just you know, see what I saw.
Wait. Back up.
I'm weirded, yeah.
Say that again.
So you know, I don't remember dreams, right?
Yeah.
In real life. So in False Mirror, I made this infinite dream machine that has a clone of my body that's 24/7 sleeping. It's connected to this machine, You know, this machine is like connected to all my senses, right? This is my body sleeping in false mirror, right? So these senses, and it's recording all my dreams,
I'm like,
everything.
I'm tripping on acid. Okay.
Well, that's a compliment, I guess.
Yeah, it is.
So one day I'm sure I can like have access to all those recorded dreams, and you know, just imagine if you could just like if someone low key recorded all your dreams and then say, hey, here you go, it's all your recorded dreams, you can watch it out, like it's amazing. So
really
you know
want
that.
to know? Do you really want to know?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know.
My dreams are so. Actually, I saw another. Everything's like a meme for me. There was like this meme that was like, "What my friends dream," and it's like peace,
Yeah,
and beauty, and water, and sunshine, and friends, and family. And mine's like a cat riding on a toaster.
yeah, true. Yeah, like, yeah, I know that's I sometimes dream in 2D, just like streaming, like scrolling in Twitter. That's the most boring kind of dreams.
So, are you? Is False Mirror an ongoing project, or it seems like something where there's kind of no end? It has like the potential to just go on and on,
Yeah,
sort of infinitely.
yeah, exactly. So every year, I sort of like focus in like one sort of a paradigm in False Mirror to expand it. And this year actually, I'm working on a new sort of chapter. I call them chapters to expand False Mirror, and it's called Eclipse. I haven't announced it yet, but I'll share some more info later on. But I'm going to add another virtual identity called Lena, which is a whole a very insane sort of post-human character. And I'm going to make False Mirror a multi-user experience where you, and this time it would be about two users interacting with each other. So it's going to become like a social experience. And for me, this is a very interesting ground to tap in. It's so untapped. The human interaction in virtual reality is just something that's not been yet thought of. Like it's all about right now. It's all about these avatars talking through microphones to each other through some 3D avatars. But what I want to explore is just how we can just use the potential of virtual reality to make more like to deeper connection between humans that is not possible to achieve in the real world. Like more in indirect sort of way that we can interact with each other. So yeah,
I put my headphones on because the people that are mowing the lawn, it's really loud. Hold on. Hard for
no,
me to hear.
okay. I'm not offended.
Uno momento. Dear God, I need wireless headphones. Okay. Okay, I think I can hear you now.
Yeah, perfect.
So you're gonna turn False Mirror into a multi-user. Would you call it like a game? Is it gamified?
It's a serious game.
Yeah.
It's nice that you put game now, because I was actually wanted to talk a little bit about like, so what's the position of like things like virtual reality as an art form in artwork in general, and games as well, because so I feel like this is a bit of I found it a bit challenging to sort of I feel there's a bit of wall or like ignorance around artists who are working with more like edgy technologies like VR, or other forms that's not getting acknowledged well in the art scene. It's always been this sort of distance, like between new media art and contemporary art, and I thought this is also a good thing to reflect on. And first of all, what you think about it, and because I think you have very better insight on this whole
Me personally?
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to a friend. I was just hanging out with a friend, so we were like in preparation for our conversation. I was sort of talking to him about your work and about VR and AR and all these different things. And I think he's not in the art world at all, and his observation was, well, you know, art that is made in virtual reality is very in augmented reality, it's always going to be hard to commodify. And that's a very cynical sort of perspective to say, like, oh, the reason that people don't want to accept it is because of that. I tend to think that much like conceptual art, which requires, you know, a prosthesis of abstracted thinking to be able to understand. Oh, he's coming by again. Hold on, the lawnmower man. So loud. Can you hear it?
Yeah. No,
Sorry.
no, not that. No, I don't hear.
Oh, okay.
No.
Well, then I'll just keep going.
Okay.
So like conceptual art sort of requires this, prosthesis in order to understand it. And, you know, there's still the vast majority of the vast majority of the world doesn't understand conceptual art. They're still thinking about art in terms of painting and statuary, not even sculpture.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that the preface of technology sort of being the only conduit for being able to conceptualize or interact with this work is going to therefore always add a level of skepticism for people who maybe don't want to acknowledge that technology is deeply embedded in society and culture, and it's not novel anymore. It's not going away, and it will be a part. And I think that it's an additional form of education and acceptance that is going to take a long time. And honestly, it's taking me a long time. Like,
interesting. Yeah.
I have prejudice and bias. Part of me wanting to get into this project and meet artists that work in AR and VR was I wanted to break down that prejudice, because I come
really
from the
appreciate
world
it.
of painting, you know, primarily painting and installation and sculpture and all those things, and the art market, and it's very specific. I mean, if people are being honest with you, they'll always tell you, like, painting's the easiest thing to sell.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, then you know, like, I don't know, outdoor sculpture, indoor sculpture, then installation. I mean, there's and things that tend to be like most widely circulated and appreciated are things that are easy to immediately understand and recognize as art, no questions asked. And this is something that will always require an added level of knowledge. But, you know, you're in an interesting time, because there's another generation coming.
Right.
You know, Zoomers and younger, I don't even know what they're going to be called. And, you know, their brains are going to be formed completely different. Their amygdalas are going to be different. They're going to have a completely different perception of reality and the way that technology mediates their lives. And they're going to be at a completely other level where your work will probably make more sense to them than a painting. So, you know, you're standing at this interesting precipice of, you know, looking forward towards, you know, a generation that hasn't fully come to full cognition of what's going on. And then an older generation that whether they want to or not, kind of can't understand you.
Right, right. I mean, I'm so happy to hear that from you. It's just amazing to hear that, because uh, like that's so true. And like it's interesting that all the curators that I happen to meet, because most of my work has been like showcased in film festivals and not art galleries. Because first of all, like art galleries and museums of any kind, they don't have the infrastructure, they have the knowledge, even the basic technical knowledge to even review any kind of work that is beyond video art. They just, like, for instance, like, give me an example. The Steady Lake Museum here had an open call for digital art and for all the artists. And I applied 2 VR projects, and I'll get declined, of course. But how can you even see that work? Because you didn't even experience it, because it's in the headset. You have to experience it. Like, how can you review a project based on some images and text? So it's not even there to be seen. It's not accessible, and that side of it I get. But mostly the curators I meet is like very young curators who see this potential in this sort of mediums, and that's quite. I totally agree with you on this generational thing, and the games as well. Like,
Yeah.
like the game industry and the whole gaming game world, even in game art form, it's been here for decades, like for many decades. But we have seen just like a few of like games getting featured in galleries, because and now you know, like, game is like is the definition of reality for the teenagers right now. Like, Fortnite is more real than anything else for teenagers right now. Like and this denial is like, this is like lagging behind. That's what I sort of like a pity in contemporary art. I feel like it's a bit lagging behind, and I hope I hope it gets better.
Well, you know, I interviewed the Winklevoss twins, who, you know, allegedly were the ones that started Facebook, and then, or invented Facebook, and then Mark Zuckerberg ripped it off, blah, blah, blah. They have gone on to become like really big. They're Bitcoin billionaires now. Made a lot of money, and they're sort of pioneers in that realm. And I interviewed them. I actually never released my interview with them because I don't know how I feel about it, if I'm being totally honest. But they started this thing called the Nifty Gate. And it's basically like selling these things called Nifties. It's basically creating a currency, but putting it through the lens of art, which is fine, because actually, like, one of my last memes was about like how I tend to look at art as a, you know, derivative of finance. Whatever. Of course, I'm joking. I said art is everything, but that's definitely one lens. Anyway, the Winklevoss twins are taking that approach directly. Now, I don't like what they've chosen and how they're curating it and all of that, but they explained it to me as a gamification of the art world, and this idea that, you know, like, I mean, I'm very basic. I didn't grow up playing like tons of video games or online games, but, you know, like Mario Brothers, you're just like running around and getting the gold coins, and then getting the mushroom, and, you know, getting the star, and all these different things. And that's basically how they explained how art, that is how art and Bitcoin, which are these manufactured currencies, are going to merge in the near future on the internet. And the conduit for that is gamification. And in all of these different apps, even, you know, a lot of times people think of games, they think of like a literal game. But I listened to this podcast called Reply All. It's like a technology podcast, and they were talking about this game that is basically like Candy Crush, right? You know, Candy Crush. But then like in between, if you want to go to another level, the commercials that come up that you play are like this is the problem going on at your house right now. Choose 4 products to see which one will solve your problem, right? So
Okay.
it's like a gamification of even advertisement. So
Right.
it's happening
Yeah.
everywhere. And you're
Yeah.
right. It's really a missed opportunity for the art world. You know, the art world is kind of slow, right? Like I kind of feel
Right.
like we usually catch on to things like it goes through a process, right, of like being sort of academically verified and
Right.
culturally verified, and fair enough, you know, I guess that needs to happen. But it would be a mistake to overlook this kind of
Yeah.
work, and it would be a mistake to overlook this way of thinking, because this is how, and the Winklevoss twins said this to me, and I almost got offended, and then I was like, okay, I'm
Mm.
gonna back up. But they said, listen, this is the way it's going, whether you like it or not. Like,
Yeah.
it's going this way, so either you jump
Gonna
on
happen,
board
right?
or you stay on the old continent and you watch it
Like,
happen.
yeah, yeah. You know what? Like, that, like, in response to what you said about like an inevitable kind of future, that's what I found in my practice working with VR. That's sort of like calmed me down in a sense that this approach that I have with false mirror is actually a response to this, because I think it's not ready yet to be seen. So that's why I really decided to focus on making like few big projects that over time I can grow, like chapter-based things that they all merge into one virtual reality. And then eventually they would all be seen at some point. Doesn't matter when, but it all accumulates over time. So I don't like, and I decided not to end up making some like small projects, like fragments of projects, this, and this. I wanted to start this process that gathers everything, and just like a snowball, and just it gets bigger and bigger, and eventually it gets where it has to go. So that's, so I besides this false mirror thing, like I mainly work on 2 projects right now: false mirror on the background always, and nerd funk, which is about Instagram, and digital culture, which I'm doing in collaboration with another Iranian artist,
Who we're also gonna be interviewing. So I purposely didn't.
Yeah.
I had a
Yeah.
note. I had a note.
I just want to give a heads up. So.
Do not ask about nerd funk.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be discussing nerd funk with your collaborator in a few days.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, do you want to open up for some questions?
Yes. Yes, please.
Yeah.
Let's go.
All right, guys. Get your questions going, and I guess I'm going to turn on comments, but keep it nice, or I'm going to turn the comments off. Sadly, I have to say that, actually. Okay, let's see. We have a question here. Okay, that's not a question. That's a statement. Never mind. Somebody had some choice words for me. Okay, you guys, we're open for questions, so we're gonna just chat until we start seeing them pop up.
Yeah, but I have one thing actually to add. Again, about another thing that's kind of scares me. That's why I said this whole like contemporary art is kind of lagging, in a sense that I feel like I have this fear of like this near future techno capital future, which I see that like big companies like Facebook and Oculus, they're just like investing it hardly on it, but because it's still a bit niche, we cannot observe that, like this whole idea of metaverse, or these gaming metaverses. I think like right now, for instance, all of us sort of have to decide which social media outlet we want to present ourselves. Like I say, I would like to be on Facebook and Instagram, sometimes on Twitter. You say I'm just on Instagram. So this is like a contemporary thing that we are all sort of struggling, right? But I would say like in 5 to 10 years, this would shift to like gaming sort of metaverse style, where there is this metaverse hosted by Facebook called Horizon that everyone can live with their friends, and it has its own clock system and events are happening in this virtual world. and then there's one thing by Amazon.
Yeah.
That's for me the scary future. That's the
There's
boring future.
that new TV show. Have you seen that new TV show Upload that Amazon made?
No.
It's it's called Upload, and it's like,
Okay.
instead of dying, you have the opportunity to have like your consciousness scanned and uploaded into the cloud, and then you live in like a VR simulated version of reality, and the quality of your afterlife is based on how much of a of that subscription you're paying.
Damn it. It's like,
they're like literally telling us it's gonna happen. And scaring us, but we're just like,
but that's the thing.
Like,
you know, like it's now it's time to speculate. Now it's time to see those bends ahead. That's why I find like one of my most inspiring artists or authors of all time is J.G. Ballard, and he says the whole idea about speculation is about seeing the bends ahead. It's like I see the shitstorm that's coming, and I'm just, although he puts it in a wrap of speculative fiction, that's kind of like, you don't want to believe it fully. It's sort of weird, but it pushes some thresholds into the extreme and tells you, hey, this is what this can go. Like Crash is this is his famous book. It's about people having sex with their cars. It's like this fetish of having sex with cars, and this erotic senses that some subcultures had with cars. And now, like right now, the amount that we touch our phones, our devices, is like, you don't touch your partner as much as you touch your phones. You know? Like,
yeah.
You know, it's just.
I mean, I'm gonna admit something on Instagram Live, but like, I sleep with my phone in my bed every night.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, my phone is my husband, you know?
Yeah, right.
Okay, wait, we've got some questions. So, hey, Steven. Steven is an artist that we also interviewed. So let me go back. You got a couple. Okay. How could you improve the way of presenting your work to museums?
Oh, interesting question. Actually, since 2 years ago, I had this frustration of the accessibility of VR, and that the fact that VR it's so tied to its need to experience that sort of overshadows the whole artistic practice, and things that you don't necessarily have to experience by yourself as an audience, but you can present them in form of performance. Mm-hmm. So what I did, I developed a format for lecture performance from VR. I can just show you one picture of this. So for False Mirror, I found a great way to showcase False Mirror is to give lectures live from VR. Mm-hmm. So last year actually did like almost 4 or 5 lectures in different festivals. So I was mm-hmm. live in VR and on this stage, and people could see me giving them a tour in VR. And I had some tools like a virtual camera, so that like here people could see me giving a keynote presentation from VR on the stage. It's a bit meta.
Yeah, just a little.
Yeah. So I found it a very interesting way of like a lecture performance. Like it's very playful. People don't wear a VR headset, but they get immersed to this whole guided tour experience. And I show them the latest additions to False Mirror, and I got really good responses from this format. But still showing the experiences to museums and galleries and stuff, it's very challenging. I think you need more open-minded curators who understand and sort of reach out, and you know.
Do you guys hear that? You fucking curators, open your mind. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Okay. Great. Do you think there can be an overlap between magazines and publishing and using interactive art and gamification first before galleries and other institutions? So
And
I guess
an
you're
overlap
talking
between.
about like media and magazines,
Oh yeah.
getting there before galleries and institutions.
Hmm. Well, I I have no idea.
Okay.
Like this is a thing I have no insight about.
Okay, so good. Just say
But but
that. No,
but one
more
thing
people
I
should
can
say
say.
that when they don't know
One
the
thing I
answer.
can say though in this regard, it's not
Hmm.
about this, but I sort of see that the fashion industry is very forward with technology than any other industry I've seen. Like now, I think there are actually some aesthetics being developed in fashion industry. Although how nasty the whole industry is there, I don't want to talk about that. But in terms of aesthetic and some forms, at least, I see that they're coming into contemporary art. Like
Hmm.
I think fashion industry is doing some stuff in an interesting way. But maybe that's because there are more resources and they're more adventurous. I don't know.
Hmm. How do you see your field staying in touch with the natural world?
I think I reflected some stuff about like how my personal sort of experiences sort of get reflected within False Mirror, and you know it's just like the flow is. I I just the good thing about this as a process is that I don't think about it too hard. I reflect there. I just like I have an idea, but it's based on what I thought about, how my whole feelings was at that moment. I make a space based on a feeling, you know. Now I'm sort of like, for instance, now I'm developing an idea in the back of my head.
Hmm.
It's about an infinite library. It's kind of inspired by the Bergson's library. It's a library of all the books in the world, like, all the ideas in the world. And I'm trying to sort of make an infinite library in False Mirror. But it's sort of low key. I'm sort of working on it.
Hmm.
Just, having this desire and then I'm sleeping on it. And then once I'm going to sleep, and before going to sleep, some nasty thoughts come to my mind and I have to write them down about this architecture of this library that I'm thinking. I build up some fake desires about False Mirror, sleep on them for days and
Yeah.
months, and then they just naturally come out. I just love it. It's so fun.
Okay. Well, I feel like Steven's question should be next. I didn't ask this one. Do you find gamification is just a word that really means interactivity? Are there certain tech-based or game-based words that may be limiting?
Mm, you know what? I honestly have problems with the word gamification. It's just something that doesn't click with me. That's I don't know. I also see this word being used. The word game aesthetics. That reminds me of identity politics,
Mm-hmm.
where we give some, tags to experiences, to notions that they're not necessarily need to be tagged as such. That's why I say serious games, because like it's about interactions. It's about having agency in a virtual world, but it doesn't necessarily have to, because the word gamification reminds me of conventional game design scenarios that are based on like exploitation of human desire, and like this whole idea of farming something,
Mm-hmm.
giving you a fake mission to do something.
Mm-hmm.
uh, that's something I have a bit of problem with. That's why I rather say serious games, like things that like
You say what?
serious games, you know.
Oh,
I'm
there you
sorry. I'm sorry.
are. Hi.
Don't know what
I was
happened.
like really struggling there talking to myself. I am not good at that, guys. I am.
You should develop that. That
I know. No, I think I need to go to broadcasting school.
you need to fill those gaps.
Yeah, those awkward silences.
Or make some pre-made lectures and start reading them. Some fun stuff.
Oh God, should just start reading my DMs.
Yeah, but no, but I didn't find time to give you enough compliments on what you're doing. It's super powerful and amazing with memes. I think
Oh,
memes is also something that's being, um, you know, it's like just like games and things that are like
do you think that
only a set of
do you think memes are art?
memes are more than art. Memes are everything. It's just
Ooh, you guys.
like
I make everything.
you know, it's just like phenomenologically, it's just insane how one image tells you, like, it's just the amount of information and the sympathy and feelings that one image arises is just insane. I'm actually sometimes getting a bit, you know, jealous of meme lords that like, how could they do this?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, in Hollyweird, if you talk to any writers or producers, they'll always tell you like every story that's ever been told is was told by, you know, the Greeks and by, you know, like Homer, the Odyssey, and then Shakespeare. Like basically
Yeah,
they claim like every story that, and then any version of that story is just like versioning. It's a version of
yeah.
that story.
It's like,
And that's all that a meme is, at least for me. I make memes about the art world, but it's literally algebra. It's like X, Y.
yeah,
You can just place something into the variables
yeah,
and 95% of the time it'll make sense, you know?
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So, but it's been really fun for me to explore. I never, you know, I think I've said this in public a few times now, but like I have identified as an artist for a long time, but then sort of professionally, I went into curating and art dealing,
right.
and so I sort of stopped thinking of myself as an artist because I wasn't making objects,
Yeah,
and then I started making memes. You know, I mean, I started looking at memes like 3 years ago, which is kind of a long time ago.
yeah.
And they were like, memes were really different back then. I mean, like memes
Yeah,
in the sense that we think of them now. And then I just started like making them, and I didn't know of any other person that was doing it, and I wasn't even trying to like be first or something.
yeah,
It just never occurred to me that somebody would want to make memes about the art world. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like I just
exactly.
like why? It's so
Right.
boring. I remember having
Yeah.
like 100 followers and being like, who are these losers following me? Like, you know, now I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, there's 75,000 losers that follow me. Okay, you got more questions. So let's go back. Hey Karen. Hi John. Oh, so many of my friends are here. Shawl is here. Okay, let's see. So this question was repeated twice. So even though I think you kind of answered it with the fashion thing, let me ask it again. It is, how do you think the music industry will adopt these technologies, given it's an industry that requires people to be physically present in a live
Yeah.
context?
Yeah. I think it's already on like a verge of like, because the music industry is kind of stuck with the whole this label structure, and I also it has some representational problems with, especially we can see this in the COVID-19, where there's something wrong with these live streams that just doesn't feel right about feeling the music. And something that really gave me this kind of hint that these things are about to change is, again, Fortnite. Where Travis Scott showed up, had a live concert in Fortnite for 10 million plus players online, and everyone saw that. And it was also the publisher of that song that Travis Scott got featured was Epic Games, which made the whole game. So you can see that this Epic Games, who made the game, they're also publishing a new song for Travis Scott. So these are some hints that like future concerts are sort of like a whole music industry is sort of trying to shift to more like games and like live virtual sort of settings where there's more engagements and presence.
You know what I was thinking about doing? I actually signed up and I haven't. I feel so nerdy sometimes because I'm like, what is a 34-year-old woman like doing on these websites, you know? But
no, you're 34. Okay.
Old. No, but I signed up for Twitch.
Nice move.
Yeah,
I'm addicted to Twitch. I'm telling you, there is one guy in Twitch.
Yeah.
He's coming from 2030. You have to check him out. Sushi Dragon. His name is Sushi Dragon.
Okay.
He's insane. You have to check him. It's like he's from the future. It's like I don't know what to say about him. You just check.
But I was thinking like, oh, I should get Twitch, and then I should just go and like live stream myself in all of these virtual online viewing rooms. Yeah, just like people, you know, like broadcast themselves playing games. Like I would like sort of not give a docent tour, but like,
great.
Here's my reaction to this painting. Oh, I'm scared. You know, like just go with it and get really weird.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, this and the fact that I love your meme that you said like they want DiCaprio is checking if it's actually legit viewing room, which is they're remote. They are the same. Come on.
Oh, you know what somebody did yesterday? I mean, and I guess it's fair game, and I don't know if by me talking about it, I'm about to set a trap for myself. But somebody has been going online and imitating me, like
what?
Because early on in the pandemic, because early on in the pandemic, I was making all these memes about how I thought it was really, like, I still do this. I think it's really funny when you sign into like a Zoom walkthrough for like Hauser and Wirth or, you know, like some really nice gallery to put your name as like Eli Broad or put your name as like Klaus Biesenbach, because no one can see if you're Klaus Biesenbach or not, and it makes everyone really nervous that you're there, I know. Even though you're like no one. So I was like openly talking about how I thought that was a really fun game to play, but now people are going and saying that they're Jerry Gogosian.
No way.
Yeah, and my friend was like sending me screenshots and they're like, is this you? And I'm like,
oh my God.
No.
I mean, I don't know how you think about it. If I were you, I would be so happy if like that shows how impactful what you're doing is. You're making some occults around yourself. That's interesting.
Yeah, well,
that's the art of deception, you know.
Go to Jerry's comment section. That is a subculture. Feel free to join.
Yeah. You have a Discord channel.
I mean, sometimes like I don't know what I like better, the actual meme or just watching the comments, because I'm like, okay, so we're just gonna let this happen.
No, but I totally support the Twitch idea. You should do it. Or just like, you know, go through comments and gossip, like comments of like, you know, galleries and like, you know, scroll down and gossip.
Okay, you know what? I'm totally gonna do the Twitch thing now. I mean, I'm
Please,
signed up for it. I'll let you know when I do it. Okay,
please,
let's see.
please.
Let's get through these questions here.
Okay.
By the way, the viewers doubles right after, and the live view came back. Oh, I don't know what that means, but I hope everything's okay. Okay, my question about the presentation to the museums was more about the improvement when you apply. You said before they were rejected for obvious
Yeah.
reasons. They couldn't experience it.
Yeah.
So, well, you kind of, I guess, answered it by saying like you could do a performance and then someone would be able
Yeah.
to.
Or I mean, I did so for Netfunk or a couple of other projects. It was a VR installation, so it has to be set it has to be set up on the space, so people could experience it one by one. But with that, you need a good tie with curator. Like
Yeah.
that's the only way.
An
Bring the
open,
curators to your studio.
an open-minded curator who sees the
Yeah.
future. Like, who could that be? Who
Yeah.
could that be? I don't
They should put
know.
this on their head.
By the way, there's somebody in this chat, Ethereal Nico, who was
Yeah.
one of my first 30 followers. So Ethereal
wow.
Nico is an
Gold.
OG loser. I have
Nice.
no idea what the fuck you were doing, how you found it, but I love you too. I think people are fighting about me now, about whether or not I went to college. I don't know. You
Is
guys,
it going well?
I went to college for 7 years, just in
Are
case
people
you're-
happy in the chat?
I don't know. Someone seems a little upset. Okay. Thanks for sticking up for me, Karen. Okay. I want questions. Enough about me. Okay. What was your Twitch? Okay. If you give me Twitch recommendations, I'll post them in my stories. So you guys, if you want to sort of get into the Twitch universe, Ali is going to give me a list. Okay.
Yeah.
Last couple questions. Has the ability to instantly manifest your perceptions, has the ability to instantly manifest alter your perception of real time? For example, impatience. Or do you sometimes mix up strong feelings you receive in IRL versus VR? I have an answer to this question. I don't even do what you do, but you go first.
Okay. So it basically means like if being in VR affects how I feel in real life, like okay.
Do you mix reality ever?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I do actually, and it's somewhat. It has some maniac thresholds to it.
Do you feel
in
like
a sense,
you're God when you're in there? Do you feel like God?
I feel like when I'm making VR stuff, I feel like I'm a god. And when I hit the simulate button and then I play it, I'm just like a baby of what I created. I'm just like, okay, it's just this dynamic between being a god and being a god's mate. And that's why I love VR. It's like you make something, you go there and experience it, and you get surprised. Like, what the fuck? I didn't mean to do this, but it arises some feelings that's what I love about this unexplored sense of it. Where, for instance, I made one test that blew my mind. It was basically 2 lines of code. I was in this huge vertical room, and I made a button there at the end of the room that could just rotate the whole room 90 degrees to make it horizontal. So the first time I tried it in VR, I feel like I'm falling down, and that was like I didn't expect it to be happen. Like that's like these are like kind of like phenomenal discoveries, like explorations that you don't expect to be happening. But then like what? Because I feel like okay, my mind got used to the idea of this is a vertical room and this is gravity is coming this way, and then I rotate the whole room. And then I feel like, oh, I'm falling down on this side. And these are just some discoveries that are really interesting. And so that's why it needs a lot of practice, because it's so unexplored. It needs active play, which means it's so hard to be concrete about ideas. You should have some sort of a direction and just play with it as far as you can to see how it goes. And another example I have from the real life thing, it honestly, if I do lots of VR development, at the end of the day, when I go to a party, like suddenly I go to a party with friends, I feel I'm a bit like autistic for at least an hour. Like everything is kind of like strange. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I think I'm still so struck by the novelty of it that, like, when I tried Google, I think it's called Google Paint.
Cardboard.
Google Paint.
Oh, tilt brush.
Tilt brush.
Yeah.
Like,
very close.
I was freaking out. I was like, this is the craziest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
And you can like
it's super fun.
Paint with electricity, and then you can like burst in and outside of your paintings that are alive, and your sculptures, and you're out in the middle of the desert. And I mean, I'm still really like struck by the whole thing. And
right,
you know, thank God we don't fully understand what we're doing, because you know, in 100 years people might be like, little did man know at that time what he created, the monster, you know, because right now I'm like, this is awesome, you know.
It's like Frankenstein.
Yeah. So
I'm not surprised if Frankenstein is gonna like Frankenstein 2.0 it's just coming out of my room someday.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be reported.
They'll like, the people from the future will like find simulate this Instagram live conversation, and they'll be like, ignorant humans who scorched the earth. Okay.
Boomers were right. All the boomers were right, actually.
Okay, I think we have one more question, and then we're gonna wrap up.
Yeah, sure.
I want to know. Okay, Karen wants to know, I really want to know if the people who show up to your exhibits already know the deal, actually interact. Intact praxis, it says. Intact praxis.
Good question again. So that's the thing with VR, which with again this novelty and this hype, that when you show a work, especially if people are trying your work for the first time, it's their first time ever in VR, they have no expectation. It doesn't matter what content is inside the headset. The whole experience of being in VR is so amazing that you feel like, okay, you blew their mind. So that's the problem of it, because that's where VR becomes gimmicky. And most of the VR projects are, to be honest, gimmicks, because there's like this shallow experiences where if you have a right expectation of what you want to get out of VR, you immediately get that. But you haven't tried it before, you'll be excited no matter what. So that's where it becomes a bit tricky. And for me, a good VR experience is like a good dream that you never forget. It's like it's the power of it is insane, in a sense that a 7-minute VR experience, it's like a very, if it's made good, in a sense that you get immersed and you have the right experience out of it, it's like a very vivid dream that you've seen and you never forget. And it's like small capsule that in a short amount of time it gives you an implanted in your brain, because it's very sensational. And you felt it in some extent.
Okay, let's play a game before we finish.
Okay.
Name 3 artists who are no longer alive who you wish you could have seen them make work in virtual reality?
Oh, interesting. Of course, J.G. Ballard, Sadegh Hedayat. He's an Iranian author. He's one of the pioneers of surrealism, actually. And that's third one is actually tough. I would say Ballard, Hedayat should be dead
Yeah, they have to be dead.
or too old to make VR.
No, they have to be dead. I know who mine are. I want to say mine. You, come on. Last one.
Go.
No.
Oh, I should. Okay.
You have to say
Hold
your
on.
last one.
I would say Rene Magritte.
Okay, good one. Good one.
Yeah.
Okay, so surrealism. Surrealism is very hot on the
List.
on the mind right now. No, a lot of people are talking about surrealism again, even in painting, new surrealism and VR. Okay, you want to hear mine?
Go for it.
Okay. Hieronymus Bosch, for sure.
All right.
I would want to see Miyazaki, that Japanese cartoon animator who made like
cool.
Spirited Away and Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah.
And the third artist who I'd want to see is Hilma Afklint, making art in VR.
Interesting. Good ones.
Do you have anything else you want to say? Any questions for me, for the audience? Any wishes? Anything you want to say before we go?
Nothing except that you're like totally appreciate that. It's thank you for having me. It's a total pleasure, and yeah, it's been fun, right?
Yeah, so fun.
I enjoyed. Yeah.
Please.
I've never been so sharp at this time of night. So that's
well, I'm sure you're gonna get a lot of messages after this. So,
yeah.
Please stay in touch with me. Like, let me know what you're working on and stuff. Okay.
Absolutely. Keep making those dank memes. and if you want feedback from me, please make it more dank.
More dank? Oh God. I know what dank means, by the way. Okay, I will. All right. It was so good to meet you.
Yeah, thank you so
guys.
much. Cheers.